Hello, and welcome. I'm your storyteller for tonight, ready to help you unwind and drift off to sleep. Before we start, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment telling me where you're from and what time it is. Now, take a deep breath, relax, and let's get started. This happened when I was really young, probably in second or third grade. Most memories from that time are pretty hazy, but this one stuck with me for reasons that will soon become obvious. It was a regular school day, and it had been pouring non-stop since morning. After picking me up from school, my parents had to head out again for some kind of upscale event. I can't recall exactly what it was, maybe a fundraiser, maybe a dinner party, but they planned to return that same night. However, the storm worsened while they were out, and it became too dangerous to drive a long distance. So they ended up staying overnight at a friend's place who lived much closer to the event. I remember them calling me on the house phone, apologizing again and again for leaving me home alone, even though I kept telling them I was fine and not even hungry. My mom gave me a list of bedtime instructions: lock all the doors and windows, leave at least one light on, and close all the blinds. You know, the usual stuff. Back then, I didn't really grasp why they were being so cautious. I wasn't old enough to fully understand the risks of leaving a kid my age home alone. Honestly, I was more excited than anything. No bedtime, and all the candy I wanted. I didn't have a screen or TV in my room, so I stayed downstairs watching TV on the living room couch. I figured I'd do everything on my mom's list just before falling asleep, since I planned on staying up all night anyway. At some point, the sugar crash hit and I passed out without meaning to. No surprise there. I'm not sure what time I woke up, but the TV had switched to sleep mode, which only happens after a few hours of inactivity. I remember waking up and immediately noticing how much colder the room felt. It wasn't a little chill, it was enough for me to notice right away, even as a kid. I almost went back to sleep, but then I remembered the checklist from my mom. I knew she'd somehow find out if I didn't follow it, and I didn't want to get in trouble after she trusted me. So, I got up and went around the house. I locked both the front and back doors, shut all the blinds, checked all the windows, and left a light on. Everything was secure, which confused me, because the house still felt freezing. I even touched the windows to make sure none were slightly open, but they were all sealed. I chalked it up to the storm possibly knocking out the heater and didn't think too hard about it. I was exhausted. I headed upstairs to my bedroom, and that's when I truly realized how intense the storm had become. Our living room is in the middle of the house, so I hadn't really noticed earlier. But my room had a big external window, and the rain was pounding against it like it wanted in. Every minute or two, lightning would flash, followed by loud thunder. I wasn't afraid of storms back then, but I was a little worried that a tree might crash into the house. That probably kept me from falling asleep again, even though I had been dead tired. As I lay there, I began hearing strange noises, creaking sounds like shifting wood, but my entire bedroom floor was carpeted, so the noise didn't make sense. At first, I thought maybe it was just a tree moving in the wind, but something about the sound felt off. I'd heard enough storms to know this wasn't normal. The more I listened, the more it bugged me. It wasn't the storm keeping me awake, it was that weird creaking. I finally sat up and looked around. I tried to ignore the storm and focus just on that sound. Then lightning lit up the room, and for a brief second, everything looked normal. But my eyes were drawn to the closet, the only wooden thing in the room. Then darkness again. Another minute passed, and lightning flashed again. This time, I noticed something that made my heart stop. The closet door was cracked open. I was certain it had been shut before. Something had opened it. Something, or someone, was in my room. I didn't scream. I didn't speak. I didn't even think. I just slowly climbed out of bed and walked toward the door, trying not to make a sound. That short walk felt like an endless journey. Once out, I went straight downstairs and hid under the dining table. Only then did I start crying. I had no idea what to do. Someone was in the house, in my room, and my parents were too far away to help. I don't know how long I stayed there, but eventually, I heard footsteps on the stairs. I held my breath, knowing that any noise could give me away. These weren't normal footsteps either. It sounded like whatever it was stumbling or jumping down each step. The steps came closer, directly toward the dining room table. It felt like they knew where I was. From beneath the table, I saw them. I couldn't see their upper half, but I saw 2 bare feet, muddy, wet, and tinted yellow. The legs were covered in scratches, like they had crawled through thorns. They were wobbling, like it was hard for them to even stand. Then, they dropped something. A wrench. It clanged against the floor, and it took everything in me not to scream. If they bent down to pick it up, they'd definitely spot me. But they didn't. They just stood there for what felt like forever. Then they walked away. I listened as their uneven footsteps moved through the house. Eventually, I heard the front door open and close. They were gone. I stayed hidden for a long time. I was frozen, not just in fear, but in shock. I was old enough to know how serious the situation was, but too young to know how to respond. When I finally calmed down a bit, I picked up the wrench, not wanting my parents to see it. The next morning, I made sure the front door was locked, crept upstairs, and went back to bed. Everything returned to normal after that. I never told my parents, at least not right away. I was terrified they'd find out I hadn't followed their instructions completely. It wasn't until years later that I shared the story with them, and even then, it took some convincing. Looking back, keeping it to myself was a huge mistake, because by then it was too late to do anything about it. That night stuck with me. I ended up sleeping with a nightlight from that point on, and I developed a fear of the dark that lasted a long time. I still can't fully explain what happened, but if I learned one thing from that night, it's this: always lock your doors at night.